Hey guys, it's Nicole. Welcome back to another video. Welcome back to another video in this series. We are up to video 7 in my TBR completion project. Today we are watching my September TBR. I haven't watched this since I uploaded it, but because it wasn't that long ago, I do have a pretty good idea of what's going to be on here. I was planning on doing a video where I did a discussion on misogyny in adult fantasy. So in September, I had plans to read a bunch of books that are notoriously known to be misogynistic in the fantasy community. I read some of them I did not get to. Hey guys, so today I'm going to be sharing with you my September reading plans. Wheel Time by Robert Jordan. I did not read this one. I read the first 50 pages, so I'm going to have to restart it and read the whole thing in a week. Intending to pick up The Black Prism by Brent Weeks. I did actually start this one, so this is currently reading. I put it down partly because I was not loving it. I did enjoy the world, and there's one particular character in here that I found really interesting to read from, but the amount of misogyny and fat phobia in this book is really, really aggressive. I'm going to also read Name of the Wind and also The Wise Man Theory. I have no words, except I did not read them. I was planning on rereading Name of the Wind because I read it years ago, but via audiobook, and I didn't take it in, so I wanted to read it physically again, and I haven't read The Wise Man's Fears, so... And that is Stormfront by Tim Butcher. Okay, finally, a book I read and hated and do not recommend. Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. Now, I also read this one. Don't, have a go at me, but it's Jonathan Strange and we stood a while. We all know by now that I eventually got that book read. I don't think I told you guys, though, that it ended up being a 1-star read for me. The next book I don't have on me because it should be coming in the mail, but that is Words of Radiance by Brandon Sands. Okay, I did read Words of Radiance. I really enjoyed it. It's my favourite book so far in the Stormlight series. Jade War by Fonda Lee. I did read Jade War. I loved it. One of my favourite reads of this year. Okay, so 4 books unread on that TBR. One of which I have almost completed. I guess that's it for now. I really don't know if I should be laughing or crying right now at this week's selection. I'm starting this today. It's Tuesday. I probably won't get a whole lot of reading done because it's the afternoon and I've still got to finish the previous vlog in this series. But I thought I may as well start now since these books are big. So first of all, The Black Prison. I started this in September. I have that much left to go with this book. This book follows a boy who finds out that his father is Prism. So in this world, people with magical abilities have abilities with colours, and there's a different hierarchy of magic. Those at the lowest hierarchy can only have the ability to use 1 or 2 colours, and then at the very top is the prism, and the person who's the prism is the one who can wield all the colours and therefore has all the magic. And our main character Kit finds out at the very beginning his father is the prism. So then he's taken away from his village. His village has just had a battle and his mother passed away very shortly after that, and he finds out his identity and is taken away to the school where everyone who has any sort of inkling of power is trained. We follow his perspective and we also follow his father's perspective, so we're switching between the two. I will say I do find his father's character to be really quite interesting. My main issue with this book is it's very aggressive in terms of how misogynistic it is and also how fatphobic it is. It was hard to read for those reasons, and it was really hard to take in any other elements of the story because of how aggressive the fatphobia and the kookaburras are all going off right now. They do this all the time. It was really hard to take in any of the other parts of the story. Not just take in, but to even appreciate other parts of the story because of how aggressive the fatphobia and the misogyny is in this book. At the point I was reading this, I can remember it was sitting on about a 2-star for me, and I think it's going to probably remain there. There's a lot of really interesting and fantastic fantasy elements that I love to see in my fantasy world, and I'm intrigued by and want to see explored. But the thing is, it's just so I just can't emphasize how aggressive it is with these problematic elements. We're told page by page how fat our main character is and how that he constantly puts himself down for it. Now, The Eye of the World, another chunker. I started this, but I only read the first 50. I've lost my bookmark. I know I'd read about the first 40 pages or so. I'm just going to restart this, I think. I will also read the audiobook for this, possibly. The Name of the Wind will be a reread for me. The first time I read it was on audio, and I think you need to read this physically because it's very lush writing, and I just remember not following along. Of course, also on the TBR, I put the second book, The Wise Man's Fear. So both of these are pretty big. I also grabbed The Slow Regard of Silent Things, which is a short novella that I believe takes place after the second book. And from what I can remember about this novella is we follow a different perspective. So we don't follow the main character's perspective. I think we follow one of the female characters. I don't know if I'll get to this, but I thought I may as well include it if I'm going to be reading these two books this week. But if I don't get to it, I don't get to it. I also decided that tonight I'm going to start listening to the audiobook of this book, Amanda Knox, Waiting to Be Heard, a memoir. This is on my top 20, that is really my top 19 books of 2020 to read. Oh my god, okay, we need to have like a laugh or a bit of a freak out because these are on the agenda this week. Yeah. Okay, so I finished The Black Prism yesterday. It's hard for me to talk about this book because I did personally find it quite offensive. I got quite angry by how fatphobic it is and how misogynistic it is. I started yesterday when I'd almost finished this book. I made a thread on Twitter and I posted screenshots of some of the things that I found problematic and questionable, and I'm going to add through that. I've got tabs, obviously, of everything I didn't like, so I'm going to go through each thing and put a thread on Twitter and explain my thoughts. So I'll leave that thread down below so you can see in the full scope of where I took issue with this book. I also spent yesterday watching a bunch of reviews for this book because even though there is talk about the sexism in this book is still very, very well loved. I can see why. The magic is really incredible and the world building is really interesting. Also, the way the magic in this world works is it can influence your hierarchy and like your status within society. So there's a lot of really interesting elements and how the magic and the world and all that interplay is really, really quite fascinating. But for me personally, it was just too aggressive and offensive in its misogyny and in its fatphobia. I couldn't enjoy any of this. It just got me really angry, it made me really uncomfortable, and I couldn't take the time to appreciate any of the other craft within the story. It's really interesting watching reviews for this because a lot of people almost excuse what this author did because the way the author wrote a lot of the misogyny and a lot of the fatphobia, it was him trying to be funny. You can see how that might be his humor. He also does it in a way that is supposed to make the character unlikable and a little bit different. But there's a difference between being funny and being funny that to the point where it's offensive. So I just didn't find it funny, and I hate humor when it's to put down someone or degrade a group of people. In here, women are constantly degraded, and it's for the point of humor. Like, I actually think that's worse because then like the author had the intent to do that. Women are degraded for the work they do in this world and the kind of roles they have. There's issues in here with consent. There's just so much. I could honestly do an entire video dedicated to this book and everything I took issue with, but I don't want to do that. Like, I just don't want to put the time and energy into that. But I will, like I said, finish making that thread and have it linked down below so you can see the full scope of where I just took a lot of issue with this book, which is a shame because there are some really cool ideas in here, especially in terms of the magic and the world building. I thought the character of Gavin was really, really interesting, but it's just too offensive and it's intentionally made that way to be funny, and I just think that is not okay. So I gave this book 1 star, even though I think the magic would actually be like a 4 star, but I couldn't take anything away. I couldn't appreciate it. I don't want to recommend this book because I think it's horrendous. So I did start The Name of the Wind, but I'm only like 1 chapter in. That's going to be my priority for today, and I also would like to read the first 50 to 100 pages of The Eye of the World. So I'll be back tomorrow with another update. I did the other night try to make a start on The Eye of the World, but I picked up the audiobook and I was going to try and listen to it while I do like cleaning and like make my thumbnail and stuff. But the thing is, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that just because there's too much world building that I need to be able to take in. So I'm going to have to physically read this because I couldn't listen to the audiobook of that. I ended up picking up the audiobook for Amanda Knox. So this book is a non-fiction book and it's a memoir. If you've never heard of Amanda Knox, she was an American exchange student in Italy in 2007. Her roommate was murdered and Amanda and her boyfriend and Amanda's boss was also all falsely, or I'm assuming all three of them were falsely accused at this point. I don't know. Amanda and her boyfriend are definitely falsely accused, and I'm pretty sure the boss was falsely accused. She'd only been in Italy for 6 weeks at the time the murder occurred. Her exchange was still a new thing and she was still learning Italian, so she was thrust into prison because in Italy, I'm not sure if the law has changed, but people can be put into prison without charge for up until a year, and she was stuck in there for quite a while. She was only 20 years old when this happened, and it's a lot, and she was really villainized by the Italian media. I also did make a start on The Name of the Wind. I'm not far in. I'm like almost 100 pages into this. This book starts off and it's at this inn in this small town, and we have a chronicler come to the inn, and he asks the innkeeper for his story because the innkeeper is not just a simple innkeeper. And each book in this series, so this is book 1 and book 2, which I'll be reading later in this vlog, spans over one day. So it's just one day of the innkeeper telling his story to the chronicler. We see the innkeeper's life from when he was really young until he grows older. So he was raised in basically a traveling circus, and we're just learning about that at the moment. I really need to get cracking on this book as well because I've meant to read more than I have. I finished Amanda Knox last night. The thing is, like, to be accused of murder at 20 years old when you're innocent is one thing, but also just the fact that it happened in a foreign country, and it was a country where she was just starting to learn the language, and all the police interviews and all the interrogations, it was all in Italian and she was still learning. And there were so many times in this where she had said something in a way that it means a certain way in English, but it means something completely different in Italian, and the people who interrogated her or who were running her case, investigating her case, just took what she said and run with it, but they didn't like look into the English meaning, and it really blew up. The way she was slut shamed and also framed to be a woman with like a lot of sexual desire by the media, and how that made her basically the devil. There was even like manipulation with like forensics that happened. It's really messed up what happened to her, and she was in jail for a few years before she was released. I don't want to say exactly what happened in case someone wants to pick this up without knowing the full case. I highly recommend the audiobook if you can get your hands on it. It's not available in every country. It's actually not available in Australia. I had to use VPN to get it here, which sounds illegal, but I don't think it is because like I still paid for it. But she narrates the audiobook herself, so I really enjoyed listening to her tell her story. I want to read another book about this case, but from another perspective. I think that would be really interesting. And of course no rating because I don't rate non-fiction. I'm actually shocked by how many non-fiction books I've read in this series. Like, it's really forced me to pick up a bunch of non-fiction books because I definitely put them off, and I love them. I actually really enjoy reading them, and I find that I get through them like really fast. So I really want to read more next year. I am about halfway through The Name of the Wind. I'm ambitiously hoping to finish it tonight. I am enjoying it. Just one thing, I'm not entirely sure how I like the way it's told, because we are switching from present day where the main character is an older guy in the inn telling his story, and that's told in first person present tense. But when he goes to retell his childhood and his upbringing and growing up, he tells the story in first person past tense. And I think when someone's retelling like their life story in a book, I prefer it to sort of fade and go to first person present tense, even though it's like something that happened in the past, and then maybe every now and then have snippets of the present older person reflecting. I'm pretty sure it's how the Farsi trilogy is told, and I really enjoy how that book is told because it is actually a book where someone's retelling their story, but you're so engrossed in the past story that you don't remember half the time that all that's happening has already happened. And I really like that. I'll see how I go. It's not something I'm hating at the moment. Okay, it's Tuesday night. Before I get into my thoughts on the books, I just wanted to open up this package I got in the mail today. I kind of caved over the weekend and I opened up everything I had received in the mail from my Christmas gifts. So I decided that anything else that was going to arrive in the mail, I will open up in these vlogs. It's from Meg with Books. She got me a Blade So Black. Spoiler alert, I will be doing Alice retellings next year, so that book will be in that video. So yeah, this is an Alice in Wonderland retelling, and I've heard nothing but incredible things, so I'm so hyped. Thanks, Meg. I can't wait to get to it. But I'm happy to say that I did finish The Name of the Wind. weird experience reading this one. I really struggled the first third, maybe even half of the book with the tense. No, I said in a previous clip that I think it was because it was told in first person past tense, but I don't think that was it. I think it was because it kept switching tenses quite often in the beginning, and then it kind of settled down the second half, and then I was able to get into the story. The thing is, this book is very vivid in its descriptions and its setting, and it is stunning, but there's too much of that and like a serious lack of plot, and the pacing is really, really off. Essentially, what the story is about, we follow a main character, Quoth, and he's retelling his story. And I know I said he was in a circus, but it was more of a music troupe, not really a circus. Like, they would go around playing music. Then one day his troupe gets killed. He survives though. His ultimate goal is to get revenge on those who killed his family, but he ends up becoming a beggar on the streets for a while and a thief. And then he eventually, at 15, gets into a university. He's also basically this prodigy. He's really, really smart, learns things so quickly. And I didn't like that. I definitely have a preference for characters who struggle to learn and you have to see their hard work. Whereas this guy can just learn so quickly that it made it hard for me to feel invested in him. He was just like so arrogant. In terms of other characters, I actually found a lot of them to be quite interchangeable, like all of Crow's friends at the university, and even the girls who are like potential love interests kind of all seem the same. And I actually started this. I didn't realise until I picked this up that this is almost 1,000 pages. It's 995 pages, so basically this book is 1,000 pages long. But the thing is, this book here is it's only 600 pages. Like, they look the same size, so I thought this book here was just gonna be like another 600 page book, but it's not. And I want to try and read it in 2 days, max 3. Am I alright? I don't know. Anyway, if you are a fan of the Kingkiller Chronicles, so The Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Fear, I suggest you skip ahead just a little bit because I need to have a bitch. I need a bitch about this book because this is boring as... So I'm currently 500 pages in, so I'm just over halfway. The first maybe 200 pages, we were still at the university and the same thing was sort of still happening. And now he's left the university and he is in another city, and we are seeing him sort of get involved with nobles and sort of the court. Whenever you look up the best fantasy books of all time, these books are always at the top of that list, and they're always described as high action, and these are not high action at all. They're slow, they're quiet, which in all honesty, I don't mind a slow, quiet book. I don't need my fantasies to be epic. Granted, I do think there's a lot of things that this book has, all these two books have, that just are not my preference. First of all, we don't really have a cast of characters. We only really have the main character, Quoth. We did sort of start to really get to know his group of friends at uni at the start of this, and I was liking that. Now he's in another city, so we don't see his friends anymore. There's only really one other character I feel like you're really getting to know, and that's the love interest. The parts of this book I'm enjoying the most are actually the interlude parts where it's present day Quoth, who is the innkeeper, and he is with the chronicler who he's telling his story to, and also like the innkeeper's assistant who works under him, Ash. But the actual past, I don't care. There's no intrigue, there's no interest, there's absolutely no stakes at all. I never really thought of myself as a huge plot-driven reader. I think I do like some sort of direction. I just like to know some sort of direction. And if there isn't any direction, then I have to have something else that's keeping my attention. Whether that's the characters and their dynamics, but there's nothing. And it's just Quoth. I just can't stand him. But I'm going to finish this because I'm completely honest with you. And I know I'm going to sound like a bitch to those who absolutely adore this series, but I don't understand how these two books are on the best fantasy books of all time. Like, every single list you look up, these two books are there. I think that's bullshit. Yes, they're beautifully written, but the pacing is off, the plot's severely lacking. The character, like, look, granted he's not my cup of tea, but I can see people really liking that sort of character that's like pretentious and arrogant and things happen easily, but I don't like that. I'm not invested in him. I'm not invested in the story. I mean, there's not really a story there, to be completely honest, so what is there to be invested in? Anyway, sorry to be so salty. I got a package in the mail. I started opening it because I was expecting something in the mail today for myself, from myself. But I opened it, I had a peek, and the colour of what is in here was not what I ordered. So I'm gonna open it now because I think it's a gift. I'm excited. It's The Killing Moon by N.K. Jemisin. Oh my goodness. Okay, so spoiler alert. I have actually started filming the next vlog in this series, which is supposed to actually be this week's vlog. And one of N.K. Jemisin's books popped up on the TBR I reacted to in the next vlog. So I read it already. I just love N.K. Jemisin. This one, all I know, it's got like priest assassins. I think it's like cult. I think they're part of a cult. And it's desert setting fantasy, which just, all of it sounds right up my alley. I'm guessing this is from Tammie. I'm going to message her now and just check, because she told me something was coming in the mail for me, and I know she loves this book. So if this is from Tammie, thank you so much, Tammie. But if not, thank you so much to whoever gave this to me. Oh my god, I'm so excited. Okay, so it's been about a week since I last updated you guys. I had all this video edited up until the last clip, and I lost all that editing, which was at least 15 hours worth, probably more. So that was just so demotivating, and my original plan was to have this video up on the weekend of Christmas. I really wanted to get it up then. I've just had more technical difficulties, and it just hasn't been a fun time, and it's just been really extremely demotivating. So I took a break. I binge watched not one entire K-drama, but 2. Granted, Sweet Home was only 10 episodes long, so, you know, doesn't really count. But that's what's happened with me and why this video is late. I've let you guys know on like the community post, but I just thought I'd mention it here in this video in case you missed that post. I have also decided, because originally what I was going to do with these videos was I was only going to go up to my October TBR, and then the last week of the year it was just going to be like a mad marathon of me trying to finish whatever books were left over from my November TBR, from my December TBR, and from my top 20, there's really my top 19 books of 2020 to read list. I've decided now that I'm actually going to not do that, and I'm going to extend this series, which only ends up being extended by 1 video. So there will be a dedicated vlog for each TBR. So we're still doing this one. This is September. Yeah, this is September. I've already started October, and then I will do November and December. So you're going to get one of those vlogs for each. Originally, I was going to cut this series off at the end of the year, but we're not going to do that. So there's going to be a little bit of an extension, because I do really want to complete all my TBRs. I'm getting a lot of satisfaction out of this, and it is fun to do, and I know you guys love them too, so I thought, why not? The only real reason I wanted to stop doing these videos at the very end of the year and not continue them into the beginning of 2021 is because I had other video ideas that I wanted to move on to. I'll still get to them, but I want to do these first. It took me a little bit longer to complete The Wise Man's Fear than I initially planned, and I also completed earlier today The Slow Regard of Silent Things, which is just a short 150-page novella. I don't think these books are bad. I know it sounds like I do, it's just they're not my preference at all. I think that Patrick Rothfuss is a talented writer. I do love his prose. I think if the pacing of the story was different, if there was a different main character, I would have actually loved these books, but it just comes down to preference. But I think if you like Quoth, I think you will love these. My favourite parts of the story was the bits in the inn, in present day when Quoth was older, and we see all the interactions with him and this chronicler he's retelling his story to. I also really enjoyed people from the town that come to the inn, because it's like this inn in a small farmer's village where everyone sort of knows each other, but the other parts with Quoth in the past I just wasn't interested in. There were parts in here that I did get interested in. There was one part where Quoth and he is traveling with mercenaries, and I loved that whole group dynamic and them traveling. That was one of my favorite parts. But then that was short-lived. I was not interested in the romances in here. Oh my god, I was just rolling my eyes. I know I originally read these books to talk about the misogyny. It's not awful. There's a lot of like generalizing of women, but I mean, compared to bloody The Black Prism, I don't think this is shocking. There's a couple of things that I'm just kind of like, Quoth is still 16 in here and he's having intimate relations with women that are a lot older, which sort of makes me uncomfortable, but I think because it's written by a man, it's like, I would prefer that if it was written by a woman it would make me really uncomfortable. So, you know, I was like to myself though the entire time I'm reading this, like, this isn't for me. This is just too boring for me. I think this is taking too long to get to the point. There's a serious like a plot. I'm not going to read the next book after I finish this. And then I got to the end, and the end has me so intrigued about the next book. This is so rude. I don't want to pick up the next book, but now I do because of that ending. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, will this series ever get an end? That is the question, isn't it? Now, The Slow Regard of Silent Things. I really enjoyed this. This is written in third person, which is different from the other two books because they're written in first person. I thought you had to read this book after you've read the first two books, but it actually doesn't matter when you read this. Like, you could read this first. I probably wouldn't recommend reading this first because this book doesn't really have any structure in terms of plot. It just basically follows one of the side characters and their daily life and how they live their life. There's real hints at like mental illness in here. It's not explicitly stated, but it's quite heavily hinted at that this character does have, I think, more than one mental illness, and it hints at their past trauma. So I really actually quite enjoyed this. I think I'm going to settle on a 2.25. It might even be a 2.5. I don't know. I'm feeling very generous because that ending really was good. It's really, really good. And I think I might give this one 2.5. I don't know. I forgot to mention there's actually really cute illustrations in this. So that was a nice little surprise. I realised I haven't talked about The Eye of the World in any great description. I've just kind of said, I've started it and moved on to talking about whatever other books I was reading. This is an older fantasy. I believe it was published, I think at the very beginning of the 1990s. Yeah, 1990 it was published. So it is older, it is classic. We start off in a small kind of village. We follow a group of young boys who end up having to go on the run because there's these evil forces, people who come to the village to try and chase after the boys. So they end up going on the run. They have a couple of other people who accompany them on their run. So essentially in this world, the women have magic and the men don't, but there's always like one man who will have the magic, and there's a man who had magic in the past, but it made him insane, and prophesies that will happen again. There will be a young boy who will grow into a man who will have magical abilities, but he will become evil. Where I'm up to and what's been happening for the rest of the book, there's been a lot of traveling. I really do enjoy the traveling. We're seeing different towns and cities. I think where I'm at, we're picking up some new characters as well. It's going to be interesting to see what I rate this book and what I think of the rest of it, because I do think it's a really solid, good fantasy, and if you're into classic fantasy, then this is going to be right up your alley. But I think I've really kind of honed in my taste in fantasy, and this isn't exactly up to par. I feel like I have nothing really of great value to say about this, and I wish I did, but so far it's sort of exactly what I expected it to be. I did it. I completed The Eye of the World. This vlog is finally at its end. I think I'm going to settle on a 3-star rating. Like I was saying, it is a traditional fantasy, which at first I'm like, this is fine, it's just exactly what I expected, but it ended up becoming a really comforting read for me. So it's got all your classic fantasy tropes. So we have like a farmer's boy, there's a prophecy, evil's returning to the world, and magical forces are coming back. I definitely actually grew to like this story the more I read it, and I found it to be quite comforting. I didn't really particularly love the writing, I would say. I didn't hate it, but it was kind of dry, and I think that sort of played a part in me warming up to the story overall. But I like this, and I will continue on with the series, which is good because I actually own like all the other books, almost all the other books. I got them like secondhand a long time ago. I think the other reason this wouldn't be considered a fave though, or I didn't really want to rate it highly, is I have found that with my taste in fantasy and what a lot of my favourite fantasy books do is they talk about themes that I'm really interested in, and it's all the themes that modern fantasy tends to include and older classic fantasy tends to exclude. So that is the end of this vlog. I've edited this entire video apart from this clip, so I'm literally going to add this footage immediately after I hit stop on the camera, and this video will be immediately uploaded because it is so late. So I think it is going to be fitting that I tell you guys to leave the clown emoji in the comments this week if you've made it this far, because it was clownery from the very beginning with this TBR, and then when I lost all that editing footage, it was because I deleted it, like, and then the amount of times I said, oh yeah, I'm gonna finish this 1,000 page book in 2 days. But the good news is I have actually been filming the next vlog in this series at the same time as this one, so I've actually almost finished the next one, so you definitely won't have to wait another 2 weeks for the next one. Do not worry, but thank you all for waiting and for your support and love on these. Also, Merry Christmas if you celebrate Christmas. I know it's late, but I still wanted to say it here. And also Happy New Year. This will be my first video of 2021. I hope you're well, and I hope that you're enjoying whatever you're currently reading, and thank you for watching. Bye!